Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. I'm your host, Adam Hartel, and what you just saw, for those of you who arrived a little early to catch the video that was playing, that was our 2020 student reel, and that represents all of that was student work completed by those artists studying at Gnomon currently. And it's really fantastic. I can't wait to see the 2021 reel in a little bit. Today, we have an amazing stream planned for you. It's going to be a very informative stream because we're going to be speaking with one of our admissions advisors here at Gnomon. Before I introduce him, I just wanted to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. We do have closed caption available on the YouTube platform. So our live stream on YouTube has subtitles for today's stream, and the recording there will as well for those of you who need to head over there who might need that. So today we're going to be speaking with Xander Pakzad, who is one of our admissions advisors here at Gnomon. And the admissions advisors here at Gnomon are one of the most integral teams that we have, because they actually spend time with prospective students, coaching them in their artwork for free and helping them get ready to apply to Gnomon. And you're going to hear a lot about that today. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Xander. As an admissions advisor, Xander provides support to prospective students as they develop their artistic skill. They help students set and pursue their goals in the entertainment industry. Xander's previous experience in video game development, game journalism, and elementary education, as well as his continuous efforts in freelance illustration and writing, affords him a holistic capacity that uniquely supports students. He graduated from the University of California in San Diego with a double major in interdisciplinary computing and the arts and communication. So with that, I want to say, Xander, welcome to the stream. It's great to have you here today.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Good evening, wherever you're watching from.
Yes. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing great. The sun's out. It's a little bit warmer. Things are good.
It's warm January here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Can't necessarily say that for every part of the country or the world, but yeah. I'm thankful for that. All right. So I think just to kick things off, Xander, before we get into talking about your role as an admissions advisor and some of the really important things that people are going to need to know for their portfolios, could you take a couple minutes to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Yeah. So I am an artist. I've worked in both 3D and traditional media. I've worked a lot in the game industry in a lot of different avenues. Right before, a little bit before I got to Gnomon, I was working in education similarly, but with elementary school students. I was an after-school teacher teaching 3D modeling and computer programming to students as young as kindergartners, if you can believe it, which was a very different type of education, but similar in some ways. And then I worked for a video game nonprofit that did a award show and conference. And I've worked also as a 3D modeler, primarily environment modeling and illustration. So a little bit of everything, primarily in games. But yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about Gnomon is, everybody at school, especially our admissions advisors, you guys are all artists. You guys are all creatives. So when you're talking with people about their artwork and their portfolio, this isn't just kind of an academic opinion. This is someone who's done art, who understands how to give a legitimate point of feedback on the artwork. So it's great for you guys to know that. Before we dive into some of the points you've prepared for us today, let's just take a few minutes and right off the bat help people understand that Gnomon is really different than a lot of other art schools out there. And a big part of that is our admissions process. So could you just really quickly kind of walk us through on a high altitude what that process is like?
Sure. Yeah. So the reason why we are so different is because we're such a specific school. In a lot of ways, we focus really on training for 3D computer graphics for the entertainment industry, for film, TV, and games. So everything that we do, our curriculum, the education team, the admissions team, and recruitment, it's all from that philosophy of we are really just nerds about this. We're all artists. And so we, everything is kind of informed by that. And so to apply to the school and all of the admissions processes are really getting to know each student on an individual basis, which from my experience looking at other schools is maybe unfortunately a little uncommon because we don't have any one size fits all solutions for students getting into the school. It really depends on what you've done before and what you hope to do. I always come back to those two things. Because we do focus on 3D computer graphics, but there's so many different ways into that. I've worked with students who, started there. They downloaded Blender, and we'll talk about that in software, and they got into computer graphics, just jumped straight in. I've had students who come from more of a traditional background, drawing and painting and taking AP art in high school, just drawing at home. They have a sketchbook and they want to know, okay, how do I get from A to C? What's the B? And hopefully my job helps with that, helps connect the dots and gets them to where they want to go, no matter where they come from. We really like that students that come to Gnomon come from so many different backgrounds, but it does require that we meet with them on an individual basis. And so I always tell everyone, pretend like we're your friend, because we really are. we're artists, like you said, and we really just want the best for every student, whether that be at Gnomon or another school. If someone comes to me and they don't know what we do, they want to do something else that we just don't train for, I'll be upfront with them and direct them to somewhere else. But usually students want to get into Gnomon, they just don't know how to get there from what they're currently doing, whatever artwork that is, if they've had training before, if they're just doing things at home. It's a very customized, individualized process.
Awesome. And I think that's great news, especially, for the student, right? You really do have their best interest at heart. That's the first and foremost thing. So let's jump into it. I've got some slides ready for you that we'll put up on the screen right now. We can get that going. There we go. Okay. So, I think in talking about portfolios, we're going to have a little bit of a conversation about debunking some of the portfolio myths that are out there. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this is going to be a helpful conversation for our audience. And I should mention, guys, those of you out there watching, you can feel free to type questions into the chat. We have another one of our advisor team, Zach, who is in the chat right now, and he is happy to answer questions about Gnomon that come up for you during the course of the stream. If you have questions for Xander, you can type them into the stream, and Zach will put those through to me. We'll take a little bit of time at the end to address what questions you have, because that's who this stream is for. We want to resource you today. All right, so debunking portfolio myths. You want to just jump into it? Should I start asking these questions?
Sure, yeah.
All right, cool. Let's do it. All right, so here's one that I know you hear a lot. I wouldn't be good at this because I'm not a programmer.
Well, good thing we don't do programming. I will say, in some instances, a little bit of computer science background doesn't hurt. But computer graphics, if you are just getting into this or curious about it, it's not programming. It's not coding. There's very little of that used in some situations, in some softwares, to make things more procedural or to get into the nitty gritty of like shaders. Sometimes it's used, but really we are training for art positions where you are using the software to make artwork and interfacing them with the software with relatively user-friendly tools that don't require computer science. So I think that when students are getting to know, when I say students, I mean anyone that comes to me. So any prospective students, artists, or people who desire to be artists, wherever they are in that process. If you're just getting to know computer graphics, you might not know that it's really not as techy as you might think. I get a lot of students who come to me wanting to work in games and want to work at a game studio. And one of the biggest distinctions right off the bat to make is, do you want to work in coding and programming and learning computer languages, or do you want to be an artist? And so we're definitely in the art side of things. It is a technical art. We do work with software, but you're not actually doing ones and zeros to make the artwork.
Yeah. Next myth, computer graphics, that's not creative.
Yeah, and so as people get to know the process of how artwork is made at a film studio or a game studio, some people tend to think that once it gets to the 3D phase, it all of a sudden is grunt work, or it's just, you're just typing away on a computer and it's not actually creative. Especially if students are getting to know the concept phase pre-production, where the assets are designed by primarily, depending on where you go, but primarily with 2D media. And then once it gets to the production phase, which is 3D, that's where the creativity leaves. And that's not the case. I would also say the opposite is also true of the concept phase. People think that all the creative decisions are made in the concept phase, and that the concept artist who draws, for example, a character and designs what it visually looks like, they get to make all the creative decisions and make all the shots. And I would say neither of those is true. When you work at a studio, you work as part of a team. You're not writing the script. You're not coming up with everything. So concept artists do need to work as part of a team, and they are working from an existing idea. But the same is also true of computer graphics artists. They're working as part of a team, but they also, when you're 3D modeling or animating or creating visual effects or whatever it is that we train for, that you get hired for, you are relied on to be creative. And we'll get into this with the portfolio requirements, and that we're not just looking for your technical ability, how well you can draw, how well you can 3D model, but do you have original ideas? If you're in a position where the concept changes in the middle of production, or the concept isn't finished, and you do need to make decisions about what the character looks like or how they function in an environment, that you're a creative thinker, that you're not, we're working with an industrial 3D software, but we're not industrial designers. We're not product designers. This is storytelling. It's movies. It's, the entertainment industry and video games. So anyway, I'm rambling, but this does require a ton of creativity, even when you're on a computer.
I think it's a great distinction that you made too, because I think for people who might be, looking at CG and 3D who are not familiar with it, you can think more towards like CAD, product design, that kind of stuff. But as someone myself who's worked mostly in 2D and painting and drawing, and when I started to learn 3D, I think the big surprise for me was it was just an extension of my artwork, and it actually allowed for more additional creative expression on top of what I was already doing. All right, so the next myth.
Can I just jump in with a case study real quick?
Absolutely,
I really like working with students who, and this doesn't come up too often, but who come from, CAD and industrial design or architecture or something that is using 3D software in a different industry. They're always very pleasantly surprised by how creative they can be, because if they're designing, furniture or something, they're thinking about the materials and the structural integrity of the object that they're making in CAD if they go to a different school. And then when they come here, because they realize they want to do something more creative, they're like, oh, I don't have to worry about if this object is literally watertight. You do have to make sure it works in a film or a game, but there's a ton of creative decisions that they can make when they work in 3D in this industry that they didn't before. So I think depending on where you're coming from, it really is pleasantly surprising how creative it is.
Yeah, and I've heard the same thing goes for a lot of folks out there who they were studying, like in undergrad or community college, they were studying computer science and they were learning a bunch of coding and stuff like that. But then they realized I'm not passionate about just sitting in front of a computer and doing coding for coding's sake all day. They find a wonderful creative outlet as they start to come into visual effects, VFX, animation, all that kind of stuff, because you aren't coding all day, but you can use that computer science knowledge to augment what you're doing artistically. I love when that light bulb goes off and be like, oh, I get to be creative. It's so cool. Yeah. So next myth, I need to master traditional art before I can go digital.
Yeah. So this kind of this is somewhat of a misinterpretation of something that we say, which is that although we don't train for traditional art jobs, we do recommend that all students, to some extent, depending on what they want to do, learn how to draw and pick up observational drawing skills, take a color theory class, perspective, and get to know a little bit of concept art and pre-production. I think the misinterpretation is I have to do all of that, be an expert at that, and then download a 3D software and give that a shot. No, they can be parallel processes. In fact, if you are interested in Gnomon at all, wherever you are in your art development skills, download a 3D software and give it a shot, because you want to know pretty quickly if you like that, if you like that tool set, that process. And the best way to know if you like it is to get your hands on it, not even taking a class, just at home, just try it at home, watch some tutorials, give it a shot, because you can do those at the same time. And as you develop your traditional art skills and build that foundation, it will strengthen your 3D work, but it doesn't have to be consecutive. You don't have to do all 2D first, get good at that, and then jump to 3D. You can kind of, they help each other in tandem.
Yeah, and for someone out there who's like, oh, I think I'm going to give that a shot, can you recommend some software for them to go check out?
Yes, yeah. So the one that I recommend most often is a program called Blender. Blender, like the kitchen appliance. It is a free 3D software that does modeling. It does animation and visual effects, dynamic simulations. It does video editing. It's kind of a really great comprehensive software. And I recommend it quite often because it is very similar to what's used in the industry, but it's totally free. So just to give 3D a shot, you just need a computer, and it doesn't even have to be a super good one, just something that can run Blender. And if you go on their website, I think it's blender.org, and we can send you links to all this if you email us later if you're interested. But they have tutorials just to get to know what it's like to navigate a 3D environment, that type of software, how to do basic modeling. And then the great thing about free software is it's so well documented. Artists have created their own tutorial series. If you know Blender Guru, I'm a big fan of that guy, and he has his famous donut tutorial, which is something like a donut and a coffee mug, which he teaches you how to make, is great because you wouldn't want to use that in a portfolio, but it's so small and limited that you can feasibly do that and create that all in a single sitting. You can model it, texture, throw some lights in the scene, and render out a final image in a relatively short amount of time, just to get to know that whole process. So yeah, that's kind of the thing I recommend first. And then as you bring your own ideas and your own concepts, then you can bring those to life too. But start small, limited, just to get to know the process and grow from there.
Yeah. And I'd say don't be afraid of the interface. Like, take the time to take that first tutorial that says, hey, this is how the interface works. Because as someone who was coming over from, like, the only thing I was using for art was Photoshop, jumping into Blender at first, I was kind of freaking out. But when I started taking the tutorials, it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense, So they make it digestible.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities. If you've done even like something like Photoshop, you'll notice there's some similarities in how things are done. They just have different terminology. Oh, and by the way, if this is what I was going to mention before, is we don't teach Blender. It's not used too much in studios, but you don't have to know Maya before coming to no, you don't have to know ZBrush. You can start with Blender, learn the basics of modeling and animation. And then if you later on have to transfer to like a different software like Maya, those big ideas, your skills will transfer. You're just learning a different interface and different buttons, but the major ideas are the same.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So another myth. I need to have blank done before showing art to an admissions advisor at Gnomon.
And this is something that is different between us and other schools. I know a lot of students, they edit themselves and they think I need to have such and such done. I have to have a certain number of artworks done before I even talk to admissions, or a certain type of artwork, or I have to have a portfolio. And we'll get to the word portfolio and how that has more of a flexible definition than you might think. But you don't have to have anything done before talking to us. If you have, a sketchbook, if you have one drawing, if you have nothing done and you haven't even done any artwork, you can still talk to us. Because if you're trying to edit yourself and you think that you have to have a certain thing done before talking to us, you're doing our job for us. You're editing yourself. We want to see everything. Just a little behind the curtain knowledge about how it works at Gnomon is the advisors like myself, there's a small team of us. If you were to apply, or even if you're just curious about Gnomon, you'd be talking to one of us. If you eventually apply, you'll be reviewed by a separate committee of people at Gnomon. So we're not a part of that, and we don't get a vote in that process, but we work with them very closely on what they look for, their expectations. And so that's how we mentor students. They will only see your final submission. They won't see anything you send to us. So that's why you want to send everything to us, because even if it's not good, if it's not relevant, if it's in progress, send us all of your work, please, I beg of you. It makes our job a lot easier when we know what you've done, because then we can really realistically recommend artist to artist what is good for you. If we recommend classes, if we just recommend, developing some personal projects, you might be closer to admission than you might think. Send us everything, and then we can have a really honest conversation about where you're at and what we'd recommend.
Yeah, so you're never going to judge and pigeonhole a student based on the artwork that they send you. You're only going to help them improve and prepare that portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Wherever you're at, we're not shaming or judging anyone. Wherever you're at, we're going to meet you there and tell you what realistically is the next step. And so, yeah, don't be afraid of us.
Yeah, this is such an important point, because I can't tell you, even as a Gnomon rep, like I typically will get to have a conversation with someone before they speak with you. And I'll be speaking with someone on Zoom or on the phone, and they're like, yeah, I got an email from Xander. And I'm like, well, have you reached out to him yet? They're like, no, I don't feel like I'm ready yet. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. Like he's ready for you now, and you can take whatever you got wherever you're at, and he's only going to help you level up. All right. So another myth: I've made art, but I don't have a portfolio.
Yes. Your art is your portfolio. You have a portfolio right now. Even if you just have a sketchbook, even if you just have loose drawings in your bedroom, that is a portfolio. We can help you level it up. Like you said, we can help you work on the individual pieces, and we can go, really into the nitty gritty about, how to improve a specific piece of artwork. We can do big picture advice about, what different types of artwork to do. If you're doing fine artwork, we can suggest, how to move that more in the entertainment industry and design specific assets like characters, environments, and props, which is a pretty common recommendation, and the different types of ways to show that off. We can help you get into 3D software, but you do have a portfolio. If you have artwork of some type, you are probably sitting on something that will be in your final submission. We might tell you to clean it up a little bit, photograph it better, etc. But you do have something. And that's why we say show it to us, because you might be closer than you think. And you could be ready to apply sooner than you think, and you might not know it. And so we don't want you to think you're not ready. You go off and toil your thumbs and make some more artwork, when in reality you could have started our bachelor's degree program already, if that's your goal. So yeah, that's why we keep coming back to show us your artwork, and we can work with you from there. Excellent.
All right, we'll take on the next myth here. I need classes in order to make artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things that we look for in students, and I think any art school would recommend this, is being proactive. And I get a lot of students who come from a traditional academic, they've gone to high school, they took AP art, and they think to learn a new skill, I have to take a class in it, which we might recommend. But you might have skills in your back pocket. You might already know how to draw. And in that case, it might just be a matter of making some personal artwork. We can send you some resources on how to use your current skills and make, you leverage it to make film and game type artwork. A lot of students are in that situation. In that case, taking a class might not be necessary. We do have classes you can take without a portfolio, and you'll get to that later. But you don't necessarily need to do that in order to make artwork. And we don't want anyone to waste their time or money when they are closer to their goals than they think. And so, yeah, There's not necessarily a class to make a portfolio or to make artwork. It's just a matter of maybe giving some context to what you already have and suggesting the types of artwork you can make next to get closer to admissions.
All right, Xander. So, I know that there's a perfect list of artwork that Gnomon's looking for. And if you could just tell me what it is, then I can put my portfolio together.
Yeah. If we had a list of artwork to get into Gnomon, it would be on our website. We have a portfolio guidelines webpage. If you've seen it, it's kind of vague. The only strict requirement for the final submission is for it to be 15 to 20 pieces. But there's no required medium. There's no required type of artwork because it really depends on what your interests are, what you eventually want to be doing, and where you come from, what skills you currently have. This also goes into, it's not about making a perfect portfolio. We are looking at the portfolio as evidence that you are making artwork, that you are an artist, that you're interested in this. And so the portfolio should be kind of a snapshot of where you are as an artist and the best that you can do. But if you're thinking about this as everything I do artistically has to be for the portfolio, otherwise it's a waste of time, I think you're missing the point. I think you should be an artist first. And then wherever you're at, once you feel comfortable in your artwork, then we can talk about which 15 to 20 pieces to make. One thing I wanted to touch on is that a lot of this process for students is getting to be an artist, to get to know what it is to make artwork regularly. And that's a little bit of a test of this. We're kind of testing to see do you enjoy this? Do you like making artwork? Will you be successful in a full-time program where you're doing that? Because we don't want you to get into a bachelor's degree program and learn what it's like to make artwork every day or every few days throughout the week regularly, and get to know what it's like to get a letter grade for that at the same time. I think the best thing you can do for yourself when preparing for any art school is to know what it's like to make artwork regularly on your good days, on your bad days, when you're feeling like it, when you're not, and get to know what that is like before getting graded on it. Because if you learn how to do both of those at the same time, it can be really stressful. So the portfolio is a lot about, seeing what your habits are like, that you enjoy this, that you regularly make artwork. There's not a bullet point list of exactly what to make. We're just kind of seeing, what do you like? So this is real case by case. Everyone's portfolio looks different. We'll get into that later though.
Yeah, I think you guys, you really just want to see what they're passionate about, right? And what they show you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's see what we've got next here. Okay, I need to have every type of artwork in my portfolio in order to apply to Gnomon.
It helps. Variety is good, and that's something I say regularly is that, like I said, we're focused on CG arts for entertainment. We don't have a lot of other majors or departments. We really just focus on computer graphics for the entertainment industry. Within that, there are a lot of different types. There's modeling of both characters, environments, and props. There's character rigging and animation. There's visual effects, simulations, and compositing. You don't have to have all of that in your portfolio. You will take a variety of classes, especially if you want to be a generalist or you do like our BFA program, which is fairly broad. Within that umbrella of 3D, there's a lot of different types of classes you'll be taking. You don't need all of it in your portfolio. We want to see that you're interested generally in 3D, that you've gotten your hands on it a little bit. It does help to have some variety to show that you're flexible. If you come to me when you have 15 to 20 guns or dragons or something, or 15 to 20 pieces that are just in one medium, if they're just all, graphite or paint or something, I'll recommend that you branch out in the type of medium you're using, in the style or genre you're working in, just to show that you're flexible, but you don't have to have one of everything. It's not necessary.
Well, and you said something really good there, is if somebody brings something to you that they might need, if they need to change or add to or grow, you are going to recommend what they should do rather than going, this isn't good enough. It's so many people get caught at that point. So many artists do, right? Like, you know, we second guess ourselves, where I hear you just saying, don't second guess yourself. Take whatever you got, bring it to me. I'm going to let you know what you need to do from here.
There's always a next step. Yeah. There's always a direction that we will give you. Even if you come to us with a perfect portfolio, I will still tell you something that you can improve upon, just so you can utilize your time the best before whenever you apply. But yeah, we're not going to say you're not good enough, go away and come back later. We'll tell you, what your strengths are and where to go next.
Yeah. It's not an audition.
Right.
So, okay. Another myth. So once I've got 15 pieces done, I'm done.
Mm-hmm. I think I got a little ahead of myself a couple myths ago, but yeah, it's not about having a perfect 15 or even a minimum 15. If you are shooting for the minimum, if you're just like making pieces of artwork until you tick up to that number of 15 and then you're done and then you have a portfolio, you can do that and you might get in with that. But again, it is better to look at this as the best way to be an artist and to make artwork regularly, to get in that mindset. If you have more than 20, because our quota is about 15 to 20 is what we want to see in the final submission. If you have more than that, if you have 30 or 40 or 100, that's a good place to be in, because then we can help you pick the best and usually most recent and most relevant 15 to 20 of that group. You don't need that much. If you want to just get 15 to 20 and just aim for that, you can. But a lot of students are really stuck in that mindset of looking at this like a class assignment. And you will be graded, not on our admissions portfolio, but once you get into the program, we do take academics very seriously and everything is graded and everyone needs to pass all the classes in the curriculum to graduate. But the admissions portfolio is not an assignment. We're looking at this as, just tell us who you are, what type of art you like, and then we'll help you work on those. So it's not so much, just get to the number 15.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Everything in my portfolio needs to be a creative design, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think in a little bit, we'll talk about the 4 cornerstones, which is the paradigm that we use to evaluate portfolio works. One of those cornerstones is creativity. Not everything in the portfolio needs to be creative. Sometimes I'll work with students and they'll send me a few pieces, some concept art, some original characters they've made, or environments or landscapes or something. And those are their creative pieces. And I say, do you have anything else? Have you just assorted drawings or something? And they say, oh, I've done some like still life or figure drawing, just sketches, just like drawing something in my bedroom. They're not creative though, so I shouldn't show you. And I go, no, show me, because it actually might serve a purpose in the portfolio. There are different purposes that an artwork can serve when we look at them. Some of creativity is one of them, because we want to see that you have original ideas, but we also want to see that you have technical abilities in drawing, that you can accurately draw something or 3D model something or animate something, whether it's your own creative idea or if it's something observational or based on someone else's concept. So not every one of the 15 to 20 pieces has to be creative. Some pieces can just be technical, to show off a certain skill you have. So when in doubt, show us everything and we'll tell you how much of each artwork to include, so that your whole portfolio as a whole is a well-rounded submission, which will show your creativity, but not every piece has to do that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. I should not be using reference, right? Like, 'cause I'm really good, I don't need to use reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really wrong. Just wrong. Not everyone thinks this, but sometimes they do. And I think it kind of comes from the last one of I need to be creative. And in order to be an artist, I have to be able to draw out of my head or 3D model out of my head. We are real sticklers for learning how to replicate something from reference, from real life, from a photograph, from something in front of you, because eventually so much working in the entertainment industry or any commercial art industry is learning how to work from a reference. For example, someone else's concept art. Someone else will draw or paint a character. You'll have to 3D model it, and it will have to be accurate. It will have to be close to the reference material. So this is another one reason why we recommend building your observational skills so that you get good at observing a reference, whether it be something in front of you or a photograph or concept art, and recreating it in whatever medium you're doing. You know, if you learn that in drawing, that skill of observation does translate to 3D, which is why we recommend both. But yeah, if you want to do something really creative, if you want to make a dragon or something, I don't know why I have dragons on the mind, but if you want to make an original dragon character, draw lizards, draw animals, draw from reference, look at do some zoological drawing. A tip for dragons, look up, Google image the feet of those hairless cats. They look very dragon-like. They're great for that. But yeah, work from reference because it will strengthen your creative designs. The most creative things you see out there in film and games, you don't see all the reference that those artists worked from and all the studies they did before they got to that creative thing. You're only seeing the final product. But in reality, they used a ton of reference. They did a ton of studies and observational work to get to that creative thing that you see in the final product.
Yeah, and putting together a reference board is a creative act in and of itself, right? Like,
absolutely, yeah.
Who would just normally think I should find an image of a hairless cat to find dragon feet?
Right. You know? Yeah, and that's not even drawing it. Just looking up the images and thinking in that way is creative.
For sure. All right. So before we jump into taking some questions from the chat, let's take a little bit of time. You're going to talk to us about how to put together your portfolio. So I think I'll just pass the mic completely to you at this point, and I'll kind of be your slide guy as you go through this.
Okay. Yeah. So on the last slide, I highlighted your in this golden orange because everyone's portfolio is different. Like I said, we have general guidelines. We have a huge list of things that you could put in your portfolio. You don't need all of them. They're just ideas, and we'll get into that in the next few slides. But really, everyone's portfolio is totally different. So this 4 cornerstones paradigm that I mentioned that we'll see here, these are the 4 main qualities that we look for in portfolios. So just going one by one, creativity is pretty self-explanatory. We want to see your original ideas. Again, doesn't have to be in every piece, but we just want to see that you are interested in storytelling, that you do have your own ideas and perspective that you can bring to the table, because we're not making furniture designers for IKEA. We're not making product designers. This is a storytelling industry. So we want to know that you can come up with things on the fly and have your own perspective. I'm going to jump to technical proficiency just because I think it bounces off of creativity really well. That just means how accurate and well executed the artwork is. Not necessarily technology. Technical proficiency can be shown in your drawing ability, in painting, how accurate your light and shadow rendering is, your perspective, the anatomy that you show when you do figure drawing and proportions and all that. Just how accurate everything is, how well executed, how much time you spend on it. Same thing in 3D is just how well you know the tools and the medium that you're using. Relevance is really important to us because, like I said, we're a relatively specialized type of school. We train for CG arts for entertainment, and so we want to know that you're interested in that. If your portfolio is a lot of fine art or illustration, I would recommend, I would take a look at that, and I would give you suggestions of how to leverage your skills and apply them more to this industry so that when you apply and you show your artwork off, the review committee knows, oh, this person is interested in entertainment. If you just submit a portfolio that is fine art and illustration, they'll go, are they interested in the entertainment industry? Do they just want to work in a gallery? Are they interested in 3D or do they just want to work in 2D? So relevance is, not everything has to be relevant. Again, not every piece in the portfolio has to hit all of these. You can include fine art, illustration, photography, graphic design. But I would recommend for the rest of your pieces that they are a little closer to this industry and working in film and game design. Refinement is just how long you spend on the piece, how polished it is. that you're really, you're not stopping at a sketch phase. You can include sketches. I do recommend it. I do recommend including some progress shots. If you do a sketch of something before 3D modeling it, show that off in the portfolio, because we do want to see a little bit of your process. But we do want to see that you can follow through and get to something as final and production ready as possible, that you're really interested in that last 10% of working on a piece of artwork that requires you to really sit down and finish it off. Refinement also goes into the presentation of the portfolio, how it's laid out. If you put it in a PDF document, if you have a personal website, that it's just clean and professional looking. And when you get to that point, we can help you. It's pretty simple, just something minimalist that shows off the artwork well is what I recommend. So this is the types of artwork that you could include. So you'll see some of these are more relevant than others. Obviously 3D art, animation, that's what we do. Concept design is close to what we do. We don't train much for pre-production positions, but it is very common, and it's a great way to prepare for 3D. Same with drawing and rendering, traditional and digital painting, just to show your technical ability. And then there's other things, like you'll see programming and scripting. We don't do much of that. We're not a computer science school, but if you've done it, show it off, email it to us. So we might recommend including some samples of it, just to show that you're technically minded, that you have the ability to pick up software quickly, which is a skill in and of itself that you'll definitely do at Gnomon. So if you have a programming background, that might be, might work in your favor. Same with things with graphic design, photography. If you've done filmmaking, those all might show off your compositional skills or your design sensibility. So yeah, show us everything and we'll tell you how much of each to include in the final portfolio. Okay, so now I have a couple different examples of portfolios, just as an idea. Again, you don't have to follow these as blueprints exactly. You don't even have to have all of these little bullet points that I listed here, but these are just some ideas. I often work with students who have a 2D drawing and painting background, and they want to work in the game industry or in movies. How do I work in a Marvel film? How do I work in Naughty Dog if I'm just taking AP art? Well, this is how you do it. You take your skills that you have of just doing still lifes, perspective, figure drawing, drawing people, drawing animals, and apply them to more relevant artwork. So concept art or concept design, as we mentioned, that would be the next logical step of taking your skills and applying them to something that is more film and game oriented. This also shows your original ideas, your creativity. When you're tasked with making an original character, how do you creatively think about that? So that's one of those pieces that would hit a couple of those cornerstones of it shows your technical ability, but also your creativity and relevance, because it's a little bit more film and game oriented than you would make in a regular art class. Storyboarding is another great suggestion of just how to tell a story using the tools that you currently have, just drawing, whether it be traditional or digital. You can include some illustrations and fine art. So don't throw anything away. Keep all of your artwork, no matter how irrelevant it is. And then ideally some amount of 3D artwork. 3D is not a requirement for our portfolio. You can apply with a portfolio that is totally not 3D. We will just have questions about if you like 3D. Have you tried it out enough to make an informed decision that Gnomon is the right place for you? That you don't come to Gnomon, get in a program, and 6 months in you go, oh my God, I hate this. I just want to go back to drawing. We want to prevent that. So you don't have to have a ton of 3D in your portfolio. Don't have to have any, but it is recommended just to show that you have tried it a little bit, even if it's not your strong suit at the moment. It's good to include a little bit of it just to show that you've tried it, and then your trainability, your skills, your creativity, you can show that off in 2D medium. And as a whole, that tells how you'll be successful at Gnomon.
Yeah, if you don't mind my hopping in here really quick, Xander, I think the advice that you gave at the top of this section, it kind of goes both ways in the sense of, someone who has learned traditional 2D drawing and painting skills, they can then take those skills and apply it towards subject matter that has to do with conceptual design. But I think also, I'm imagining, say, a high schooler out there that, they're already drawing characters and weapons and all that kind of stuff, and they're sketching it out, but they're wondering, well, how can I level that up? Well, if you're not taking an art class at your high school because you're like, well, I don't want to paint landscapes, or I don't want to shade spheres, or or draw somebody's hand, like I want to draw spaceships. Like it goes the other way too. Like if you already like to draw that kind of stuff, you want to make sure, if you have access to classes where you can learn how to render hard surface objects, or you can do a little bit of anatomy study, all that stuff that to you might seem irrelevant to the subject matter that you like to do in your high school art class, take it anyway, because that's the skill sets you need to make your conceptual stuff better. Because I've seen a lot of that as well. 100% relevant. And I know that a lot of our art teachers out there teaching in high schools are really happy to hear that when I talk to their students.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a two-way street. If you're already doing that type of work, revisiting the basics and fundamentals will strengthen your creative designs.
Yeah.
So 3D modeling. Some students just jump straight into 3D modeling. They're not interested in traditional art as much, and that's totally fine too. I have a couple tips of just how to approach that. Use reference. That's one of those myths we debunked. Use reference a lot. Like I said, start small. Don't go for the big castle or spaceship or huge environment first. Do a donut, do a coffee mug. Try just doing something basic like a sword. If you want to work in a genre that is closer to what you want to end up doing, some type of environmental piece that you would see in a video game or a movie that's relatively small, so you can get through the whole process of finishing it. Once you have a few of those under your belt, then slowly up what the complexity of what you're working on is, and you can build your portfolio out that way. We do recommend getting into some drawing and concept art. Even if you're more technically minded, you want to just jump into 3D software. It helps to do a little bit of drawing. You will need to pass a few drawing classes at Gnomon, depending on what program you get into, but you don't have to have a lot of it. And then my last point is start with hard surface modeling. You don't have to, but I have seen it is really helpful, even if you're interested in characters and you want to actually make the main characters of a game or a movie. Start with props first. Again, just because they're smaller, and specifically they don't need any anatomy or figure drawing knowledge. You can really just look at an object from reference, recreate it in your program, and that is a snapshot of what the pipeline is like. And so just getting familiar with that with smaller props is easier.
Cool.
So character animation, if you want to be an animator for games, or if you want to work in feature animation like Disney and Pixar and actually want to move the characters, some specific tips are: start with figure drawing. Just learn how to replicate the human body, classical proportions and anatomy from figure drawing classes, or figure drawing books. I have suggestions of books because obviously right now we're not so much in a classroom. And also try and design your own characters. And this is a recommendation for pretty much everything, but particularly figures and characters, is err on the side of realism. If you do any type of style where it's not as realistic, where you're working in like Disney Pixar proportions or anime or something, we don't have anything against any specific style. It's just for the sake of training. Every good artist starts off with how does a human body exist in real life, and how is it constructed in real life realistically before it is exaggerated and the creative decisions come into play. So you can show off any kind of style in the portfolio, but I would, if you feel like you're tipping towards something stylized, balance it out with some observational and realistic work too. Your own original designs. Do gesture and expression sheets, which means draw your character or even just a human figure in different poses and different facial expressions. Once you get into animating the character in 3D, that's going to be the basis by which you'll do that in 3D. And then get to know 3D software to some extent. Again, starting with basic modeling, trying out some basic Newtonian physics, or like a walk cycle or a run cycle. You can use a character model that is already built and rigged. You don't have to make a character from scratch. If you do something like that, just say, in your portfolio, I didn't do the model, I just animated it. But that's totally fine too.
That's such a good point too, is that sometimes people feel like, well, if I put anything in my portfolio, everything about that piece needs to be done by me.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to tackle the animation of someone else's model if what you're wanting to highlight is your animation and you give the artist credit.
Right. Yeah. It's another myth. And then VFX. If you want to make explosions, fluid simulations, fire, smoke, sci-fi effects, usually for film, although also in games, then what you'll be doing is you'll probably be jumping into 3D software very soon, just right off the bat. This is kind of the specialty that requires the least amount of drawing, although it really helps to build those art fundamentals in traditional artwork. But ultimately, this one is more technical and jump straight into software. So like I said, if you haven't already, download something like Blender. If you have access to something else, that's totally fine too. We don't really care about what tools you're using, just what you're doing, the type of artwork you're making, and how well executed it is. But yeah, dynamics is basically that, like explosions and simulations of destruction or elemental simulations. If you have a filmmaking background, you can include some film. You can composite 3D models and visual effects with live action footage if you want to in a program like After Effects. You can include some motion graphics. Motion graphics this kind of gets more into different industries like marketing and advertising, title sequences, that kind of thing. You can include some of that just to show you're interested in that and your technical ability with that software. And then some 3D models too. If you take a program at Gnomon that is focused in VFX, we have a visual effects concentration in the BFA program. And then in the more advanced 2-year certificate program, there's also a VFX area of study. You will also be taking some modeling and texturing classes. So not everything that you'll be doing in a program will be VFX. It will definitely focus on that. But our philosophy at Gnomon is that no matter what your specialty is, that a little bit about what comes before and after and the whole pipeline. So you will be taking some modeling classes. So just throw in some of those too in the portfolio. Ideally, not required, but just to show that you're interested in the breadth of training that you'll do in a full-time program.
Cool. All right. Well, you ready to take some questions from the chat, Xander?
Sure.
All right. So yeah, we've had a steady stream of questions coming in that Zach's been sending through to me. And perhaps some of them were brought up earlier and you've since gone on to answer that question. And I'll make note of that. But let's jump in here. Let's see. Okay, so for our portfolios, if we have multiple original character designs from the same universe, are they treated as different pieces or just one?
This is a very good question. So each piece that you make, every character you make, or prop, or environment, or animation, is a different piece of artwork. So that can depend on exactly how finished each one is, how complex it is, and so that's where you'll want to show us, and then we can give you more specifics. But yeah, each one is a different piece. If you a little bit different question is, if you have all of these different pieces, different characters from the same universe, I would recommend going outside that universe too. And that this gets into flexibility. Just if you have everything that is science fiction, you have spaceships and aliens and environments that are on different planets, are you going to be okay if you have to take a class where you have to make a sword or something that is horror inspired or more modern day, not so science fiction? So just showing that you're not attached to one specific genre or style is something I'd also recommend showing. Again, you don't have to have one of everything. It doesn't have to be an equal distribution between all genres, but just show a little bit of flexibility just to show you're not attached to one style or one type of artwork. But yeah, to answer the question, they probably would be different pieces in the portfolio.
Yes. We had another question asking if we teach programming, what kinds, and I think you touched on that earlier. We're not primarily teaching all of the programming and coding behind games in that sense, but there is a little bit of scripting involved in some of our VFX classes, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we do touch on like Mel scripting and a little bit in Houdini. So some of the more technical programs, and depending on the class, we get more into that. But we're not a computer science school. One thing that just came to mind, in our BFA program, there are some general education requirements. In our second math class, we do focus on a little bit of scripting that will help you in some programs. And the other GE requirements, like some of our science requirements, are fulfilled by life drawing classes. The English classes focus on storytelling. So we can talk to you more about that if you email me. But yeah, we're not a computer science school. So if you're looking to be like a programmer at a game studio, you'd probably be looking at a different type of program.
All right, here's another interesting questions come in. In Gnomon, while working from a syllabus, how do you deal with students who struggle with sort of normal deadlines or lose motivation with the workflow? Mm-hmm. Is it I'm not sure what they mean by this, is it a sit and learn mentality?
Yeah, so we are on a quarter system that moves by pretty quickly, and there are quite a bit of deadlines. If you're in a full-time program, you're juggling multiple projects and classes at a time. And just that in and of itself is an adjustment for everyone, no matter where you come from, what kind of training you've had before, if you've been to college before or not. It's usually tough for everyone to get used to that, just doing CG in an academic setting. Most of it is self-scheduled. You're only going to class once a week for each of your classes, and the rest of it is just doing homework and projects on your own schedule. But it can be tough to keep up with deadlines and everything. So we do have resources for the full-time students. The Academic Mentoring Center, which is our education team. They're also mentors. If you need help with a certain class or you're having trouble learning a certain software, you can meet with them. We have peer tutors, and then we also have a therapist on campus that can help you just with basic, time management and things like that. So it's very common. We have some resources in place, and the benefit of going to a small school is everyone's super accessible. So if you need to talk to anyone, work out something with your instructor, everyone's super available.
Yeah, and if I'm understanding correctly, if any of the thought behind the question there was, kind of what's the learning mentality, there's a lot of collaboration. You have your class time, and there are some lectures. There's also demos, but that class time is just a portion of time. You're spending more of your time relative to that class outside of the class working on your assignments, and our labs are always constantly full of multiple students working alongside each other, maybe on different assignments, but they're resourcing each other. So there is a really big emphasis on peership and collaboration that is a part of learning at Gnomon, because that is a really big part of the industry. There's no Lone Rangers out there.
Right.
If that's what you were driving at with the question. All right, next question. How do we get paired up with an admissions advisor to get the portfolio help you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation? I love that question.
Yes.
So how do we do that, Xander?
Yes, so a couple different ways. Best way is my colleague Zach is probably somewhere in the chat. He put a link to a contact form where you'll put your name and email. That goes straight to us. You won't be put on some mailing list. We're not going to bombard you with spam. It's really just kind of sends a notification to us that someone wants to talk with us and introduce themselves. And so we'll respond via email. We can set up a call via Zoom, Skype, Discord, phone, whatever works for you to talk about where you're coming from, what artwork you have, and what you want to do next. So fill out that form. That's the best way to get in contact with us, and then we can take it from there.
Awesome. All right. So I've been playing around with Maya, but the learning process has been a bit slow. Is that expected?
Yeah, I would be curious to know what you're doing in Maya and how you're doing it, if you're using tutorials or working with a mentor in class or something. It's never been easier to learn this on your own. You know, we live in a time where everything is very well documented. There's tutorials for everything. YouTube is a great resource. So it is relatively easy to get started with this, but also, you know, without that first class, it can be hard to know what to Google and you know, how to troubleshoot certain things before you have had a first class. So we can help you with that. If you're struggling with a certain problem in the program or just your artwork in general, email it to us. And, you know, again, we're all artists, so we can give you tips on how to solve that. But it might just be generally slow learning a new software because these programs are very dense. They do a lot of different things. But we can give you some shortcuts on, you know, the types of things you can do to really fast track your learning depending on what type of 3D art you want to be making.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well, it's something, you know, admissions advisors can help you. You know, if you're interested in 3D, but you're hitting some speed bumps and you're wondering, is there a better way to go about it? That's why these fine people are here to resource you. They can help you with that. So that could be an example of one of those points that somebody might think, well, I don't want to let the admissions advisor know that I'm having a hard time figuring out Maya. That might make it seem like I shouldn't go to this school.
They'll remember that when they pass me off to, no, we won't. I mean, we will, but it's not gonna count against you by, you know, if you tell us that you're new or you're struggling with something, tell us, because we can really help you out and you know, be honest with us. It's not gonna count against you.
Yeah. And I think that's probably going to make the better impression at the end of the day. Like, oh, sure, they were really open and willing to ask for help and they actually followed advice and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Asking questions is good. It makes you a good artist. It makes you a better employer when you get a job. Ask questions, be honest about that. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So is there a big difference between a priority deadline and the final deadline when applying to Gnomon?
Yeah, good question. So we're on a quarter system. We're just kind of rolling throughout the year. We do have a final deadline for each quarter. You can apply for the program at any quarter, spring, summer, fall, and winter. You don't have to wait for fall. There's a deadline for each one that's about 2 months before when that term starts. And that is the final date to have your portfolio done, your application in, your official high school transcript in, and do a final phone interview with us. If you're an international applicant, there's a few other documents you'll need to do in addition to all that too. We can review you whenever you're done. You don't have to wait for that final deadline. The priority deadline for fall is basically just to remind students of that. We'll do a kind of a big batch of applications in March, I think is that priority deadline, for students who are applying for fall that might be applying to other universities too, and want to get all those decisions at the same time, and they can make the decision of where they're going to college. So if you want that in March, just let us know. If you want it in February, if you want it by the end of this month, you know, we can get you a decision whenever you're done with all those 4 steps. So just keep in contact with us about where you are in that process and when you'd like to be done, and then we can give you tips on that. The benefit to applying early is that we do have a merit-based scholarship that's dependent on the portfolio and application and interview and all that. And those are on a first come, first served basis for students who qualify by the review committee. They give them out. So that is the one benefit to applying early, but we don't have a quota. We don't have a maximum. We'll accept as many students as are ready for the program. So if we recommend taking a little bit more time closer to the deadline to finish off your portfolio, we might recommend that.
Yeah. And I think I'll dovetail with that and say too, like, don't confuse that with when you can simply start talking with an admissions advisor. I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, you know, I'm a junior or I'm a senior in high school. I might not even be applying for another 2 years or 1 year. And that, if you're interested, that shouldn't hold you back from just reaching out to an advisor now. It doesn't mean that they're going to be like, all right, you're going to apply for the next term, aren't you? No, it means that it gives you that much more time to get ahead of the game and to get coaching on your all the stuff that Xander's been talking about today. You can benefit from all of that, even if the term that you want to apply for is a long way off.
Yep. Even if you're just curious, we want to help you find the right school for you, honestly.
That's right. Yeah.
Would that be Gnomon or somewhere else? If you're curious about Gnomon, let us know. Tell us where you're at, and we can have that conversation with you. Yeah,
it blended a little bit with, it's almost like a, for lack of a better term, kind of guidance counseling as well.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know, towards art schools, not just, you know, are you good enough to get into Gnomon or not? Oh, sorry, guys. There's a house just went off. I can't mute it. So
no worries.
So next question.
Good background noise.
Come on, phone, stop. All right, the question is, please tell me, other than the portfolio grade, or other than the portfolio requirement, what is the grade or GPA required for getting accepted into Gnomon?
Yeah, good question. There's no minimum GPA. The only educational requirement for a full-time program is we want to make sure you're graduated from high school. If you are a senior and you're about to graduate, you can still apply. You can still finish the process and get a decision as long as you're on track to graduating, and you'll be graduated by the time the program actually starts. You can apply it when you're a senior or in your last year. There's no minimum GPA. We'll look at your grades. We want to see that you apply yourself, that you're generally a good student, because especially in the BFA program, there are some math and English and science classes you'll have to take. Like I said before, a lot of them are geared towards artists, but they're a little bit more academic. You're gonna have to write an essay here or there. So we just want to make sure that you're a good student. There's no minimum though. If for some reason you had a blip in your academic history, you didn't do well sometime, just be honest with us. Let us know what the circumstances were, and we can tell you, how to kind of make that up. But there's no minimum.
Absolutely. All right. So are sculptures or mixed media appropriate for portfolios? Would that just mean that you'd need to submit photos of those pieces?
Yes. Yeah. And so, yeah, those are perfectly fine media. What you're doing with the media might dictate how relevant it is. If you're doing some type of fine art installation, that's different than if you're sculpting a character that would be in a game or something. But anything is possible, even if it's not relevant. Send it to us anyways. Just send us a snapshot of it. Keep everything. If you end up using it in a portfolio, we can give you tips on what lighting to use. You really, that's part of the portfolio, or sorry, the refinement cornerstone is if you create this beautiful piece of work and you use a bad phone and it's not well lit, the image is blurry, we can see your dirty laundry in the background. The photograph of the piece is kind of a piece of artwork in addition to the actual sculpture. So you really want to take some time and just make sure it's clean and presentable and clear, that the image shows off the work. And we can give you some advice on how to do that. But yeah, any medium is acceptable.
Cool. All right. Is the 2-year certificate course good for someone who's already done 4 years of art college and studied 3D animation and sculpting? Or would you recommend something else?
Yes, potentially. It would depend on what you've done and where your portfolio is. So share it with us and we can give you our feedback. But quite often, the 2-year certificate is seen as kind of a finishing program for students who have a previous degree or industry experience, or they've just done a lot of self-training and they don't want a bachelor's degree, or they already have one. And so it's a little bit more of a step up. And if you're interested in kind of going through Gnomon and learning how we teach 3D, taught by industry artists, and how to make your 3D pipeline like super effective and build out a really big portfolio, even if you've done 3D before at a different school, it might be a good step for you. You can also take individual courses. So aside from the bachelor's degree program and the certificate, we also offer the same classes just one by one, a la carte. So you might be in that position too, where you're pretty close to being employable. You have a good portfolio. You just need a couple more classes. So in that case, the certificate might be overkill and you just want to take a few of those individual courses. So yeah, share your artwork with us and then we can tell you what your options are and what we'd recommend.
Yeah. How much traditional art is respected in today's industry? I mean, if someone is legendary in traditional art and wants to work for, let's say, Disney, would it be possible?
Sure. I mean, the caveat with anything about a studio is you'll have to ask Disney. You'll have to ask them what they're looking for. And that's a good thing. I mean, even if you're pretty early on in this and you don't have a portfolio, just check out job listings on sites like that just to see like what they're looking for, how they word the job description and what software they're looking for, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, traditional artwork is really really well respected and can be in a portfolio when you get to not the admissions portfolio. I mean, of course, for us, but even when you get to a portfolio where you're looking for jobs, you can include some of that to show your technical ability. It depends on the studio, how much they want to see of that. Some studios are more particular. They just want to see CG art, or they just want to see their style of artwork. But yeah, hold on to everything. Definitely use that as a skill. I say with traditional artwork, even if you don't show it off in a portfolio, the time you spend in it will show off in your 3D work. It will be obvious that you've done that work, even if you don't show the drawings themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, if you look at somebody like, and thank you, Xander. Of course, we can't answer for Disney or any other studio out there. But if you look at an artist like Ian McCaig, for example, and if you don't know who he is, look up his artwork. He's amazing. Here's someone who is renowned for their conceptual art done in pencil or in traditional mediums. But he's also someone who made a name for himself doing that before digital was a big workflow in the industry, and even he went ahead and learned digital. So I mean, I would just say try to think of digital as another medium, to work in, as opposed to a substitute for or something like that. At the end of the day, the art director wants to have the idea conveyed. And they're going to be the one to tell you, what mediums they want to work in. But definitely don't treat digital like something that somehow negates or is against traditional work. Let's see. How important are critiques? I don't know if that just means in general or if they're talking about critique in the admissions process, but maybe you can help our audience warm up to the idea of critiques, because I know that's a scary subject for a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's scary for me, and I do this. It's vulnerable to show off your artwork. It's kind of nerve-wracking. So for us in admissions, I'll start with that, and then a couple other scenarios. But for us, it really is, we try and be as constructive as we can, because everyone, like I said, comes at this from a different background, and we want it to be very clear that there's always a next step for wherever you're at. And so our critiques are always about where you're at and building on that foundation. Like I said, even if you have a great portfolio that is going to get you in and get you a scholarship and you're going to be top of your class, I will still find the thing that you can improve on, so that you can put your best foot forward when you finally apply. So our critiques are very much about having you be your best at whatever you do. Once you get into the program, critiques are a real big part of pretty much any art school, but particularly Gnomon. It's a lot of honest feedback from the instructors, because they are all working artists. If you take a 3D modeling class, it's going to be taught by someone who does that for a job. And so their critiques are really about similarly helping you be your best artist, but also it is the kind of critiques you'll see once you get on the job, because a lot of these instructors are art directors. They are supervisors. So they do this, that they'll critique you as if you were working for them, because one day you might be, who knows? So it's a big part of any art training. It is nerve-wracking if you've never done it before. We promise it's not that bad, and it's really just to help you be your best artist.
Well, we've all heard horror stories, of that stodgy old, art teacher. Maybe they're frustrated. Maybe they couldn't cut it in the industry or something. I don't know. But we've heard those horror stories about that person that just rips another human being to shreds. There is a difference between being critical and offering a professional critique.
Yes.
And I will tell you, knowing our instructors and even being in some of our classes myself, that our instructors are really good at offering constructive criticism that's going to build you up. And they're actually very good at not making it about, well, I don't like your style, do my style. It's more about what Xander said is it's always going to be a level up experience. It's just vulnerable and a little uncomfortable to go through, but you're always going to become better because of it.
Yeah.
All right. Is making a demo reel necessary for a portfolio, or are photos okay?
So depends on what type of artwork you're doing. If it's traditional artwork and concept art and 3D models, Still images or photos are probably good enough. And in that case, the format of your submission would be a PDF or a personal website or something, just outlining all the photos or images. If you have anything motion, any animation, visual effects, then doing a video reel, might be more beneficial. I mean, it definitely would be beneficial if anything is in motion, because you can't show that in an image. But in that case, you could submit your reel as a video file or a YouTube or a Vimeo link or something. And once you get to that, we'll help you out. But for now, just to get feedback on the artwork itself and to share it with us, you can just share like image or video attachments or put it in a Google Drive folder or Dropbox or something. I've worked with students who have both, and they have a PDF for their images and a video reel for their animations. As long as all together it adds up to 15 to 20. So yeah, there's different ways you can do it depending on what type of artwork you have.
Yeah. What's the average age for Gnomon's 2-year certificate? Most of the people I know for the 2-year certificate went for the 2-year certificate after getting a bachelor's. So they're kind of they're trying to gauge like what's the age and place of these kind of students in the 2-year.
Yeah, it's a pretty widespread. I'd say average age, not that this is wholly representative, but maybe late 20s, early 30s. It depends on what their background is. We get students who have done a bachelor's and look for our certificate to really get them to an employable level. And so that's why they're coming here. So that's a good chunk of them. We get students later in life who want to make a career change. So they're older. We sometimes get younger students who are fresh out of high school who choose the certificate because they just don't want a bachelor's. And this 2-year certificate does have higher portfolio expectations. So it's not very common for a younger student to go for that, but it's possible because it's not like it's not technically a graduate level program that requires a bachelor's. So so there's a big range, but I'd say late 20s as an average.
This is a really good question. I'm interested in making 3D animations, but the rendering time is really a problem for me. What should I do to show off my prospective animation capabilities? So it sounds like they're running up against some tech and hardware issues, to render it to the nines. It's just taking too long.
Yeah. So first thing that comes to mind is I would show off whatever you're working on before rendering it out. You can take like a screenshot of the viewport in the program you're working in and share that with us just so we can see what you're working with. And we might have recommendations on just based on that image alone, even though you wouldn't want to use a viewport screenshot in your portfolio usually. And then there might be reasons why it's taking so long. You might be using a type of light in the scene, or you might be using a lot of polygons or textures that are not necessary. Once you start working on a higher level computer, it might not be as much of an issue. If you end up working in the film industry or something like that it's just not as much of a factor. You wouldn't have to worry about that. But for now, if you're working on a home computer, it's good to learn how to be efficient and to not use too many polygons because it'll make it slower for you to render. There's other options if you want to do like a virtual render farm or something to speed that up. But if you're just making an admissions portfolio, I bet you can probably get away with making artwork on your home machine, and you might just be doing something in the 3D scene that is using too much of your processing power. So share the artwork with us as a screenshot and tell us what's in the scene, and then maybe we can help you troubleshoot.
Awesome. Again, guys, our advisors are available to help you troubleshoot these kind of things. These are not things that I've got to figure this out by myself, or else the advisor is going to think I don't know what I'm doing. Like, they're here for you.
Now we know you're coming to school for a reason.
Yes, yes.
You don't have to know everything.
Now this next question, I love it because I know what the answer is. This is an awesome question. So does Gnomon help with job placement and career services? If so, are those services available to alumni?
Yes. Okay. So yes and yes. We have a placement department that helps graduates when they've graduated and even right before they've graduated in the last 6 months or so of both the BFA and the 2-year certificate programs. Those last 6 months are really about making your final demo reel, your final portfolio that you'll use to go look for jobs. Around that time, you'll also be meeting with our placement department. We have 2 placement advisors. One has worked primarily in games, Den, and then Shannon has worked in film as a compositor and visual effects artist. And so they have worked both as artists and also on the recruiting side. So they're really well versed in how the hiring system works. And they keep in really close contact with film and game studios in the area and really around the world about who's hiring. So they will help match you up with employers who are hiring for the position you want in the industry you want. So our goal is to help you get your job within 6 months of graduation. So that's not a requirement, but we've seen it be pretty successful just based on, networking and that portfolio, that like demo reel process in the last 6 months.
Yeah. And we've got an amazing placement rate. I don't have the numbers yet for 2020, but I know that 2019, we were at 97% of our full-time students were placing in the industry within the first 6 months of finishing the program. And the year before that, 100% placement rate. It's one of the things that is very unique about Gnomon, is our placement. Our placement people are rock stars, and we really help you get out there and get that job.
That second question, sure. to clarify, it is a lifelong resource. Is it available to alumni afterwards? Yes. If you get a job for a couple of years and then you want to get a different type of job at a different studio or something, you could always come back to the placement department as an alumni and they'll help you out.
Yeah, which is amazing. I don't think I've ever heard of that anywhere else. All right. I mostly use Cinema 4D. Would I be able to still use it in addition to learning Maya at Gnomon?
Yeah, so at Gnomon, you can use Cinema 4D absolutely in a portfolio to get in. You can use 3ds Max, Blender, whatever you're using. At Gnomon, we don't use too much C4D. It is in some classes, but mostly Maya is the industry standard, and that's the software we've picked to kind of be the home base 3D software. Even when you take ZBrush classes or Houdini or something, usually Maya ends up having a place in that process. So you can use it here and there, but I think most of the classes kind of test your ability to implement the techniques taught that week, which are often in Maya. So just because, to get through each class and to see that you are picking up the curriculum, you might be tasked with doing that thing in Maya specifically.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is the thought behind this particular person's question, but questions like this come up a lot. And sometimes it comes from a place of like, well, I've already invested a lot of time learning this software. So can I, if it does the same thing, can I just use that? And to that, I would say that a lot of our, all of our education leads would say, well, a big part of being at Gnomon is learning how to learn. And you're going to be learning new software all the time in the industry. You might go from one to the other. So we're teaching you not just the software, but we're teaching you the techniques and principles that are going to be true no matter what software you're in. The software that we teach that you do that in is going to be industry standard. So don't be concerned about that's going to somehow put you behind. If like, well, I don't know anything about Maya, but I know this software. Everybody's going to be learning Maya together at Gnomon, and it's going to be a very valuable skill to be able to learn additional software. So let's see. This is an interesting question. Can someone become a VFX supervisor having graduated from Gnomon?
Sure. Yeah, definitely possible. We're we train for CG positions that are junior, mid-level, or higher, where you're actually making the assets. Anything above that, if you're supervising a VFX team or a 3D team, if you get into managerial or directorial positions, you definitely could. We have had alumni do that. So it just depends on where you go to work and how you rise in the ranks there. But definitely, and usually, outside of Gnomon, most people who get into those positions, they work their way up as an artist, because in order to be a VFX supervisor, you have to know what it's like to actually make the VFX. So it's definitely possible.
So would you say, the majority of our graduates are going into junior or mid-level artist positions, as opposed to like graduating from Gnomon and having no experience in a studio and going straight to VFX supervisor? But we give you what you need to get out there and work in that studio and work your way up and go as far as you want to go in your career.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
You will be rising through the ranks to get to that place, and we give you the tools to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Is the Foundation in Art Design course available to do online?
Yeah, so this goes for everything we're doing right now. Because of COVID, our campus is currently closed, so we have moved everything to our online platform. We had that online infrastructure in place because we've been teaching online classes for several years, just a few like introductory classes and intermediate modeling classes. So last year we just moved everything to that platform. That will remain true until campus reopens. We're not sure exactly when that will be. But until that happens, the Foundation in Art and Design is online, so you don't have to be on campus. I mean, you can't be on campus. You don't have to be in Los Angeles to take that.
Yeah. Let's see. Can the portfolio for the 2-year certificate be diverse within the realm of 3D, as in characters, environments, etc.?
Yeah, that sounds like a good portfolio. Yeah, based
Awesome.
on how much of each you have, I might have tips on what else to put in there. But yeah, diversity is good. If you take like the modeling and texturing area of study of the 2-year certificate, there's those 5 areas of study which dictate the upper division classes. It's not just a character modeling or environment modeling. You'll be doing both. So if you want to specialize in one or the other, you definitely can, and most students do. But if you want to do both, that's really good to have that portfolio already coming into the program.
Yeah, and we'll finish up on this question. I would like to know how these studies are going due to the pandemic and the COVID situation.
Yeah, so our students are saying it's going really well. I mean, it is different. You know, this has been an adjustment for everyone, obviously, just being at home, taking classes at home virtually with a webcam and holding yourself accountable to deadlines and everything. But yeah, it's been going really well. We're, as a technology school, we've been, pretty equipped for this. And so just, like I said, with that online class infrastructure already in place. So the classes, just to review the basics, they do meet live as a designated time, just like they would on campus. You have screen sharing functionality, so your instructor can see what you're doing in your program, webcam and mic, to actually, so you can see your whole class. And the students are interacting with each other throughout the week. You mentioned that this is a real collaborative, tight-knit community. The actual work you're doing, there's not a whole lot of group projects because we want you to be responsible for every step of the pipeline. But students, on campus, they're in the labs with each other, helping each other out and exchanging information. While we're online, they're doing the same, in Slack and Discord and everything. So it's been, going really well for an online, full-time program.
Yeah, any of you, you come into the full-time program at Gnomon, we'll get you in touch with all of those, online communities of students, so that you can have access to that right away. Mm-hmm. I'll also mention that if you go to the website, the Gnomon website, gnomon.edu, you scroll down, you'll be able to look at a video right there on the homepage of what our online learning platform is like. So it highlights the different aspects, it highlights what we're doing online, and how we're resourcing students. So I definitely suggest going to check that out. And, because this, unfortunately, this pandemic's been going on as long as it has, we've been graduating students, during quarantine. And these students are also out there working in the industry now. So, in a lot of ways, I'd say that I think you would agree, Xander, it's not like it's really hurt our students' abilities to learn and be successful in the midst of what's going on.
Yep. Yeah. All the same, like the AMC, the placement advising, that's all been happening remotely. So yeah, like I said, it's just, this is a weird time. It's been an adjustment for everyone in every industry, but compared to other places, this has been, really quite smooth. Everything is operating just the same, but just virtually.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Xander, thank you so much. This has been incredibly helpful, very practical, very informative. And this stream also is being recorded, so I think it's going to be a great resource for many, many people out there. So yeah, just thank you so much for giving of your time.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for all the questions.
Absolutely. And guys, this is also just a great opportunity for you to kind of hang out with one of our advisors before you speak to them and see that they're nice people and they're really cool and they've got a lot of good advice. So I would say, if you're even just curious, don't hesitate to reach out. Our colleague Zach in the chat, he'll provide a link that will take you to that online, simple form you fill out. Again, we're not going to use your information to call you at dinner time for the rest of your life. We're just going to use that to reach out. One of our advisors, like Xander, will get in touch with you. Just keep an eye on your email, keep an eye on your spam folder, just in case an email gets routed there. But we do want to talk with you if you're interested, and these guys are here for you. So don't go anywhere. As we wrap up this portion of the stream, we are going to show a very short reel of our campus. And Gnomon has an incredible campus. I miss our campus being in quarantine. Even though our students are doing well online, we have an amazing place that you can come to learn. So we're going to show you what that's like. And when that concludes, I'm going to take just a little bit of time at the end of our stream to offer kind of an informational presentation about Gnomon and our academic programs for those of you who'd like to stick around and hear that. So once again, Xander, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course.
And we'll get the reel of campus rolling here, and I'll see you right after. All right, so that was our newly produced reel of the Gnomon campus. I mean, guys, it's an amazing place. We're talking about the Hogwarts, the Jedi Academy of learning the art of games and film and visual effects. So just to take a little bit of time with you, I'd like to share with you information about Gnomon and our programs and what we are training artists to do in the industry. So I'll just get my screen share up here for you. Gnomon's been around since 1997. So for over 2 decades, we've been teaching students, preparing them for these careers. And we were started in 97 by an industry artist by the name of Alex Alvarez, our founder, who is with us today and very, very actively involved in leading our school. And last week, we did a great interview with Alex, and we learned a lot about what makes Gnomon unique as a school, as an art school, and the kind of successes that we've had over the years. So definitely encourage you to go check out that stream. It's recorded on our YouTube channel to get to know our founder a bit and why Gnomon is what Gnomon is. Over the years, we've won some great awards, including ranking #1 worldwide, ranking #1 in the US. We've won School of the Year. And let's just give you an idea that we've been around for over 2 decades and we're very good at what we do. And because of that, we have alumni who have gone on to work on amazing projects. So what you see on the screen here is just a sample of some recent projects that all of them have had Gnomon alumni working on them. And that's to say that our emphasis is to prepare artists for the industry. We are teaching you what you're learning with the goal that you will go out there and actually start working in the industry, not just have some skills and then figure out how to build a career from there. So student success is very important to us. Let's see here. And these are some of the studios out there that have Gnomon alumni working in them, who are regularly hiring alumni from our school. As I mentioned earlier in the stream with Xander, last year, 97% industry placement rate in 2019. In 2018 is 100%. And we're getting those numbers in for 2020 as well. And I'll have you know that, as we mentioned earlier, we haven't really missed a beat. We've even had students graduating during quarantine, during the pandemic, and going out there and working in the industry. All right. So what are artists learning? What are they learning to do while they're with us at Gnomon? In a term, it's called digital production. Now, digital production is sort of a catch-all phrase for the following skill sets and disciplines. These are things like computer-based visual effects, character and creature design, digital sculpting, character and creature animation, environment design, lighting and rendering, matte painting and compositing, game asset creation, game engines, production workflows, and world building. And each of these skill sets translate into the following careers. So every one of these positions in the production pipeline that I'm putting up on the screen here, these are all unique career paths unto themselves. And the reason why this is important for you to see is there are many different kinds of creative jobs available for many different kinds of creatives. You know, every Gnomon student is not just exactly the same kind of artist. And so we have people going out into a broad array of careers that are available and doing some fantastic work. So just by way of example, I would like to highlight just 4 of these roles in the digital production pipeline, starting with character artists. Now, a character artist does exactly what the name implies. They are responsible for actually making that 3D character creature that is going to be what you are seeing on screen, whether you're playing a game or watching a film. Now, this artist here is creating a 3D creature using a piece of software called ZBrush. And ZBrush is the industry standard for digital sculpting. That's basically using traditional sculpting techniques with a ball of virtual 3D clay. So it's perfect for doing this kind of work. And this is an example of a position that's great for someone who, you know, maybe before going to 3D has had a real passion for drawing creatures and characters and is leaning in that kind of direction. These are the kinds of artists that go out and start working in production, making game characters and so forth. The next role I want to talk about are VFX artists. Now, these are artists that, you know, I like to say that they essentially, their job is to sit in front of a computer and blow things up all day. That's not the only thing they do, but this is an example of the kind of stunning work that effects artists do. And because sequences like this, they're animated, but they have so many millions and millions of moving pieces, you don't set up a scene like this and animate it traditionally like you would to animate a character. Instead, effects artists are using specialized software that actually creates simulations of real world physics, things like water and fire, gravity, weightlessness, velocity, mass, and so forth, which allows them to make great sequences like this that are believable to the human eye. So anytime you go see a movie and you see, you know, you kind of see that film that has an amazing visual effects sequence, maybe it's something you've never seen before. It has a team of visual effects artists behind it. And these are artists that, you know, and they're typically very curious about the world around them. And they're looking at things that happen and wondering why they happen the way that they do. VFX artists are very creative problem solvers. They're taking the vision of the director and trying to find a way to make something that does not exist. So if you're interested in doing that kind of stuff, this could be a fantastic career for you. Another career that we're training artists for is compositing. A compositor does what you see here. They take footage filmed in front of a green screen and they insert different kinds of CG assets into that scene. And they're responsible for making scenes like this. And, you know, for example, you see here the tennis court in the background, a 3D model. The tennis players are actors, often the same actor in front of a green screen. In the foreground, you have 3D models of buildings and scenery. Lighting is put on those buildings, texturing and painting. Additional actors are inserted. A final lighting pass is done, and you wind up with a scene like this. This is what is known as an establishing shot in film. This is from the film The Wolf of Wall Street. And, directors need shots like this to let the audience know where the story is taking place, especially if they change from one location to another in the story. Now, a director could, for a shot like this, go out and hire a film crew and get that helicopter or that large crane to film that wide shot, and get actors and insurance and find the right location. Or they could do what most directors are doing these days, and that is going to an effects studio and saying, hey, these are the establishing shots that I need. We'll provide you with the green screen footage, but we need your artists to make all of the assets and put them all together. And the compositor is the person who's kind of almost at the end of the production pipeline. And they don't make all of the different elements you see going into the scene themselves. They receive those from the other artists, and they're the wizard that knows kind of how to weave it all together so that it's 100% believable by the audience. And compositors are doing this so well these days that, even VFX supervisors that I know, they'll look at some scenes and they'll tell you, I can't tell whether this was done in compositing or if it's all in camera. So if you're interested in kind of, selling that bigger picture and maybe creating a scene in a place that's not real, but making it look real, this is a fantastic role in the pipeline. Lastly, I want to go all the way towards the beginning of the production pipeline to something called pre-visualization artists. Now, these are artists that essentially are making a moving storyboard of a film. Traditionally storyboards are 2D images. They're often hand-drawn and they're arranged in a sequence, kind of like a comic book, to explain what is happening, panning, and so forth. Well, nowadays, pre-visualization artists are using simple models and simplified animation to create a moving picture, a moving storyboard, if you will. And these are artists that are more interested in storytelling and the big picture, a little bit of cinematography and so forth, than they are necessarily spending, the next, 10 months getting Brad Pitt's face perfect in model. So they're working with all these simpler models. They're working very closely with the director and with the cinematographer to put together the film in this way first, so that as the rest of the production team goes to work on the film, they're all working from the same common vision. All right. So with some of those positions in mind, let's talk about Gnomon's academic offerings. This is how we are training artists for these types of positions. So just a bird's eye perspective, Gnomon offers a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in digital production. It's a fully accredited 4-year college degree. We also, just to the right of that, we have something called a certificate program, and that is a 2-year program that is a little bit more advanced than the bachelor's degree. On the bottom row here, we have a foundation in art design, which is essentially something that doesn't require a portfolio to get into. This is a foundational course that helps you build your portfolio at Gnomon and learn those foundational skills. And on the bottom right there, we also have many individual courses. So well over 70 classes that are part of our full-time programs are also offered individually. And I'll talk a little bit about what that is like in a moment. So starting off, let's look at our Bachelor of Fine Arts degree at Gnomon. This is our main academic offering. It is fully accredited, which means that financial aid is available. A lot of the usual suspects that you could look into for grants and so forth are going to be available to you as you're applying to a program like this. It is full-time, and when we are not in quarantine, it is on campus. And presently, we are 100% online during quarantine, and Xander and I talked about that a bit earlier in the stream. Very effective online platform, custom built by us, that we've been using for years before quarantine even started. Now, this 4-year program has an optional concentration in game art, which means you're tuning your skill sets in production to specifically working within game engines. And it's not listed here currently, but we also just added a VFX concentration as well, which means by picking that concentration, you're going to get access to some of the VFX classes that have up till now only been available in our 2-year certificate program, and lets you focus on preparing yourself specifically towards working within VFX. The 4-year program covers all the aspects of what we call a 3D generalist skill set. And that means, as we talked about earlier with Xander, you're going to be learning all of the roles in the digital production pipeline. Even if your intent is, I know that I want to be an animator, we're going to teach you all of it first to provide a solid foundation for you to then build up more skills in a particular area. And this is going to make you a very desirable hire as an artist coming into the studio, because you don't know how to just do what you do, but you know how to do what comes before you and after you. Makes you a great team member, a very valuable addition to the studio, and also allows you to work in other areas and stay on projects longer. Now, that being said, in the last 4 terms in the BFA program, you also then get to pick out 4 electives. So that then lets you add on additional elective courses or classes in an area that you want to focus on more. So that then allows you to build off of that generalist education, some more skills in animation or in visual effects or in character art or whatever it is you're planning on aiming at and building your demo reel in. And we have a rolling admission for our full-time programs at Gnomon, which means you can apply in the fall, but you also can apply in the winter, the spring, and the summer. We have students graduating 4 times out of the year, and most of our full-time students choose to stay on for the summer term in the 4-year program, which actually allows them to complete the program in just 3 years so they can get out there and get working in the industry that much faster. Next up is our 2-year certificate program. This is also fully accredited. It is full-time and it's on campus, of course, when we're not in quarantine. And it has 5 areas of study that you can choose from. These are going to be things like animation, visual effects, modeling and texturing, and so forth. This is going to be more intense and faster paced than the BFA program. It happens in just 2 years, but it's going to help you to build foundational 3D skills and then choosing an area of emphasized study for the remainder of the program. And this is what Xander was talking about earlier, that it's almost like a finishing school. Maybe you already have a 4-year degree from another art school, but you want to come to this 2-year certificate program as a way of like honing your skills specifically for working in digital production, or you want to learn these skill sets and you're not interested in getting a degree. This is something that you could talk to admissions about possibly applying for as well. All right. Next up is our foundation in art and design. And this is essentially a course that allows you to do portfolio development to build your portfolio at Gnomon. It's a course that lasts for up to 1 year, although it's not required that you take all 4 terms of it. It's designed for you to get in and learn the necessary foundational skills that you might still need to learn in developing your portfolio. So these would be things like figure drawing, life drawing, anatomy for artists, perspective, color and light theory, and then you also get in some great entertainment design courses, things like character and creature design, vehicle and mech design, environment design, and so forth. This is also a great way to learn the skill sets to build up a portfolio, say for applying to a school that is an art school but teaches something other than what Gnomon teaches. And we have students that come through and use our foundation for that as well. This is not something you need a portfolio to apply to. It's something you can just speak with one of our admissions advisors about if you're interested in getting into our foundation in art and design. This also currently, while we continue to remain in quarantine, is available 100% online for you to start. And lastly, well over 70 of our classes that are part of our full-time programs are available as individual courses. No portfolio is required. No, it's not something you have to apply to. You just reach out through the website or contact an advisor, and you can choose from one of these 10-week individual courses to sign up for. And we also can offer advice if you're unsure of which level to start at, which course to take. But each one of these is going to be 30 hours of class time spread out over 10 weeks. So that's 1 3-hour class per week. We have traditionally, we have some online options, but currently under quarantine, all of our individual classes are available online. So this is a great time to take an individual class at Gnomon. It's never been more convenient, and you can talk with an admissions advisor about how to do that, or just simply go to our website and sign up for one of our individual courses at Gnomon. All right. Now, admissions is something we covered at length today before the presentation. So I would definitely, if you're tuning in late or you're just seeing the presentation, go back to the beginning of this stream, if you're watching it recorded, and watch the interview with Xander, because he offers tremendously good advice and really outlines why admissions is here to help you and why we are so different than other art schools. And I'll just say that briefly by saying our advisors, and here's the 4 of them right here. This is our admissions advisor team. Each one of them are artists. Each one of them can offer a professional academic critique and feedback of your portfolio work. And these are the people you want to talk to before you apply to Gnomon. They are here to offer you coaching as you prepare your portfolio. They're going to help you put together as successful of a portfolio as you can before you apply to the program. They're also here to offer advice, help you, with any roadblocks you might be experiencing presently as an artist, and offer resources for you to level up. So if you're interested in coming to Gnomon, whether that's an individual class or a full-time program, these guys are here for you to speak with and get advice from. My colleague Zach is in the chat, and he'll provide a link that you can use to reach out and just basically provide your information and say, I'd love for one of these advisors to reach out to me. And if you do that, I just suggest, of course, pay attention to your email. If you're not checking it every day, watch for their email when it comes in. And maybe keep an eye on your spam folder just in case it gets routed there, because they'll reach out to you and then you can reply and set up an appointment with them, whether that's over Zoom, and begin talking about what you feel you need to talk about to learn more about Gnomon and level up your portfolio. All right. We showed the campus reel just before the presentation, and the Gnomon campus is an amazing place. It's more like being at a studio than it is being in sort of an academic campus. And that's because we're actually on a studio lot in Hollywood, which puts us right in the middle of the industry. It helps all our instructors, all of them are working industry professionals, to be able to get to our campus to teach the classes that our students are in. And it puts us close to all those studios who are hiring our graduates after they finish the program. The last thing I'd like to mention is Gnomon has some fantastic live events. When campus is open, we do amazing industry events on our soundstage at Gnomon. But since we've been in quarantine, we've also been doing a lot of live streams like this one. Some of them are informative and educational, like this stream. Others are going to be demos and interviews with industry artists and studios talking about their workflows and the current state of the industry. So if you're interested in that kind of content, definitely subscribe to us on social media so you can be the first to know about upcoming events. I will say that we have a fantastic event coming up next Friday, 1 week from today. We are going to be having industry artist and Gnomon alum Ashley Stegan. She's going to be with us. She's going to be taking a 2D drawing that she's done and begin to translate that into 3D. So if you're a 2D artist and you maybe don't know a lot about 3D, and you're curious to know how are those two skill sets interrelated, how can 3D be something fun and creative and expressive for a 2D artist, Ashley's going to be covering that and demoing a bit of digital sculpting in ZBrush while we talk next week. So that's going to be next Friday at 11 a.m. Here's examples of some recent events that we've done. And all of these are recorded and available on our YouTube channel. You just go back into playlists and browse well over 100 events that are free and accessible to you now. And let's see. The last thing I'll mention is that we also, if you are an educator or you are a student in high school or in a community college, we also engage classrooms, and we are engaging virtual classrooms during quarantine. So if you're interested in having a Gnomon representative such as myself visit your virtual classroom, people provide information about Gnomon, and also do a really fun interactive drawing session on a cloud-based collaborative canvas. We offer something called the Gnomon Virtual Classroom Experience. And if you're interested in that, you can just simply reach out to us. You can fill out the paper form and mention that you're interested in that. And we'd love to follow up with you. So guys, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. We went over time just a little bit, but that was because we had some excellent questions coming in from the chat, and we want to make sure we were able to get to those. Lastly, I'll say that you can be back here on the Gnomon stream. The next stream will be on Wednesday, and our Chief Creative Officer, Josh Herman, who is also a industry veteran, worked with Marvel Studios. He's modeled things for the Avenger films and so forth. He hosts a weekly art jam every Wednesday from 10 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. And this coming Wednesday, he's going to be hosting artist Jared Kraszewski, who is a digital sculptor. He's a conceptual designer. He does amazing creatures and so forth. And Jared has been doing some amazing sculptures in ZBrush lately, using some of their newest features in ZBrush 2021.5. And he's going to be demoing his process as he hangs with Josh and they work on art together. So you can join us on Wednesday back here on the stream at 10 a.m. and be sure to tune in next Friday for Ashley Stegan as well. So once again, my name is Adam Hartel. Thank you to Miranda, who's been handling our production on the technical side, as well as my colleague Zach, who's been with you guys in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to us. We're here for you. We want to help you achieve your goals as an artist. So stay creative, stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you back here again soon. Bye-bye.